Hi. Hello, how are you?
We don't really need to introduce Jennifer, do we?
How are you?
For those of you living under a rock, this is Jennifer Garner. You've seen her on TV and in film. We will talk about that perhaps at the end, but maybe.
We don't need it.
All right, but I wanted to focus on an area of her work that you may be less acquainted with. Look, Jennifer has been this amazing, outspoken advocate for children and for early childhood education. And she's testified before Congress, where she also needed no introduction, and now she's taken those concerns into the realm of entrepreneurship. So I was wondering if you could tell me where this passion began. Where did it all start?
Well, first of all, just hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited and really honored and humbled to be up here in front of all of you. I'm sure so many of you are chief brand officers. I mean, that's a totally common thing, right? I don't know exactly what it means, but it means that that's what I do. So this all started, everything kind of has come from my work with Save the Children, where I've worked for the last 11 years, but it really all started with my mom, as everything does. Talk about early influences. My mom grew up super poor in Oklahoma on a little farm in Locust Grove, and she is the only one who managed to get out and go to college, and my dad also grew up with nothing, and he managed to go to college, and because of that, my sisters and I, it was always assumed we would go to school, we would have a middle-class upbringing. And then I grew up in West Virginia, where I was surrounded by generational, dyed-in-the-wool, real, intractable poverty. And I was just very aware of my cousins' lives versus mine, the kids around me, their lives versus mine in West Virginia. So once I found myself having a very loud voice, I hunted down what organization had the most efficacy in rural America, and that was Save the Children's US programs. Mm-hmm. And from there, once you're in there and you're learning about what kids are up against in our country, and you're talking about, birth to 5 and how important it is to get in there and get moms talking to their kids and get them, connected to the schools and early numeracy, early literacy, just the stressors of poverty, the trauma of stuff happening in your brain. You can't help but then think, but what are they eating? What are they not eating? And Once Upon a Farm is a kind of a growth from that.
We'll get there soon. I was hoping that we could revisit just a few details from your testimony, because you really have been up close to this, not only in your proximate in your family, but beyond that. Could you tell this room the story about the 7-year-old that you encountered? You were doing a home visit in Central Valley, up in California.
The baby with the ball?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Sure. So part of what I do that I just feel like for me is the most important thing is I go and meet moms and children and dads, but usually it's a mom or a grandmother and a child, and see what they're up against, and then I talk about it because I'm not an expert. I don't really know anything about brain development really, and I try to make sure that I see as many families as I do. I spend as much time actually visiting people and homes across the country as I do either advocating on Capitol Hill or at the state level or fundraising, which is kind of a tricky thing to do, but it's really important to me. And on one of these visits, just to kind of put into context what we do. When we think of kindergarten readiness, growing up, if you have a child in Manhattan or certainly where I live in Los Angeles, kindergarten readiness pretty much means reading. You think about your child, do they know any Spanish? It's a whole different ball of wax. But what it is in our country really is not even knowing the alphabet, it's knowing there is an alphabet. Not knowing how to read a book, having seen a book, and knowing that when you're being read to, you can sit and listen for a little while, and you know that pages turn, and you know that letters exist. It's just tolerance for sitting and listening as much as it is anything else. And one of the examples of a home visit that I love is I was visiting a mom in Central Valley, California. I was just there again last week. And we were in a cinder block hut. It was hot. It's not a hut, it's a home, but it didn't feel like a home. There were flies, it was hot, it was miserable, and this poor mom had an 11-month-old and she had a 2-week-old. And you know how when you hear friends talk about adopting a child from China and they say, when you go into the orphanage, it's quiet. They're not crying, they're not making any noise because, and I say China, I don't even mean China. I just mean orphanages in countries where they don't have the means to take care of the children one at a time. The same is true of kids in our own country. They're just shut off. The parents are so overwhelmed trying to deal with their own stressors of putting food on the table, broken water pipes, not knowing where they're gonna sleep at night, drug addiction, partners who are abusive, whatever it is, that they don't know and can't get out of their own mind enough to know to talk to their baby, sing to their baby, play with their baby. So the kids aren't expecting anything. There's silence in these homes. That poverty is silent. So I went in with one of the Save the Children coordinators, and we started playing with this 11-month-old. And he was quiet, he was nonverbal, and he didn't really crawl or walk. He just sat in front of an old, let's see, what's the one with Ariel, Under the Sea? Little Mermaid, that played on a loop over and over on a tiny little TV. And she had a ball. We brought in a ball, he'd never seen one. And she rolled the ball to him, and he kind of stared at it, and then she did it again. She rolled it to him again. And he looked up, she gave it to the mom. She said, roll the ball to your baby. And finally, his eyes kind of really started to light up, and eventually he made a noise, a babbling baby noise. He went, ah! And the mom said, the coordinator said, he's talking to you, talk back. And the woman said, my baby's not talking, I'll wait till he knows how to talk. And she said, no, this is it. He is communicating with you, it's so exciting, you're doing such a great job, he's talking to you. So the mom babbled back to the baby and rolled it back. The next thing you know, they are rolling this ball back and forth. The baby is talking, the mom is talking back, the mom smiles, the baby lights up like a Christmas tree, and you see the whole energy in that little house. Suddenly it's a home, suddenly everything shifts, and you feel like, oh, there it is, it just happened, the light went on, this kid has a chance. If we can go back week after week after week after week and get this mom and baby turned on to each other and communicating like this kid can have a shot at going into kindergarten ready for school. And it's that simple. That's basically what we do.
Right.
But in the process of that, we see hungry kids.
Oh, man. How did this, I mean, obviously you have these powerful images that you've observed actually going into these homes. Mm-hmm. How did your advocacy work take you from the realm of working with a nonprofit to delving into entrepreneurship through, Once Upon a Farm? Take us across that bridge.
I spend a lot of time on Capitol Hill. I've testified a couple of times. I go door to door. I do the whole thing. I'm sure many people in this room have done the same shtick that I have done. And I do a lot state by state too, because we'll go and fight for state funding. We'll go to counties. I'll go wherever they send me if I can. And you know what? Government is great and necessary, but they are so slow. They are so slow. And if it takes 5 years to get enough momentum to do something to help a poor child, well, listen, brain growth happens in the first 5 years of life, 90% of brain growth. We all know that in this room. But so if you take 5 years, that's a generation of kids lost, opportunity lost. You don't get those neurons growing and forking out and being trees and doing all the things they're supposed to do. Again, that doesn't come again. So the time is now. And what I started to realize in all of these millions of meetings is that business pushes philanthropy. Business is driving change. And so I said, okay, all right, well, it seems like a lot of actresses are doing that, so what the heck? But then you have to find the one that actually makes sense to you, is authentic to you, and that you can speak about with the same passion and authority I have about growing up poor in America, which I didn't, but I've seen it.
Right. So how did you're now a co-founder of this company. I was wondering if you could talk about the company its mission, which is very much aligned with some of the work that you've done in philanthropy. And how did you come to the two founders? I mean, how did you end up coming together with these two, the founders?
I spent years just talking to different companies in the very early phases and seeing, you know, because I'm a spokesperson for things, and I really love that job. I love talking about something that I believe in, and I don't mind that at all. I think of women as my girlfriends, and I'm just happy to be part of a conversation. But then you kind of eventually want to have more skin in the game. So we met with a ton of companies, and there were so many great ones, but they weren't ones that solved a problem for me or would have solved a problem for me. And having been a mom, you know, with 3 kids, and I, you know, nursed and pumped all over this world, and I've probably pumped in this bathroom here, I don't even know. But
so great.
I tried so hard to make my kids baby food, and I have help at home, and it sucked. It's not really that glamorous a thing to do, because you've got to clean the thing, and you've got to whir this, and you've got to, you know, are you putting enough ingredients in and challenging a palate and whatever. My kids eat buttered noodles, so I don't think I did a very good job. But when I heard about Once Upon a Farm, and suddenly it's exactly what it says it is. If it's blueberry applesauce, it's blueberries and apples that have been pureed, and because they've been cold press processed instead of, you know, heated up or had anything added to. There's no filler, there's nothing from concentrate, there are no additives, there's nothing added at all. Then I felt like, oh my gosh, I would have fed this to my children. I would have been delighted. And actually, I'm delighted now. I feed it to them now. So it was something that was an aha for me. This is something I can do and can believe in. But when I first met with John Forker, who was on the advisory council for Once Upon a Farm, this was a tiny company. It was in 300 stores, and on its little angel investor board or whatever was the guy who had run and sold Annie's, John Forker, who is like a man among men. He is such a fabulous leader. Just everything about him, he is a golden human. And I met with him to say, why are you here? And I'm thinking about working with these guys, and what brought you to the table, and how invested are you? And by the end of that conversation, I said, listen, I'm in if you're in. And he said, well, I'm in if you're in. And so he left General Mills, which had bought Annie's, and came over to run Once Upon a Farm. And the thing that connected us was I said, I love this company, it makes perfect sense to me, but I can't just feed kids in Manhattan, Connecticut, and Beverly Hills. I have to, that just doesn't ring true to me. And he had the same absolute feeling about it. So from the very beginning, becoming WIC approved was our mission.
Yeah, tell me about that. I mean, this is the first refrigerated baby food to receive, to be eligible for recipients of the Women, Infants, and Children program. So how did you manage to get over that hurdle? Was it?
It is a hurdle. It is no joke. You should see John and me Googling away. You know, how do you get WIC approved? What are the requirements in Florida? So, you know, part of our mission is that all kids deserve access to great food. And the reason that I feel so strongly about this is I go grocery shopping from time to time with moms that I meet through Save the Children. And I will see them saying, okay, the food bank should have this in on Tuesday. These are my food stamps for the rest of this month, so I've got to make this last. And my WIC for this month is this. So I'll get this from this, I'm gonna wait on that because I'll get that there, I'll get this from this. And I've said to these moms before, you know, if you had been raised one town over in my house and you had the education that I've had, you'd be running a company. You are unbelievable the way your brain is working to keep your family going. I hope you know that about yourself. And they're always kind of like, really? You know, poverty is so enervating, it's so unfair. But the food that is available for babies in WIC is the kind of baby food you open and you just say, oh, do you want a bite? No, is the answer. It looks like cat food. I mean, we all brag and say, oh, my dog food is human grade. Oh no, I could eat my dog food if I wanted to. It's fabulous. And then we're gonna feed a baby something that you wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. It just doesn't make sense. We just are stuck in an old paradigm of how this should look, you know? So we just have a new way of doing it. I mean, it's refrigerated, so that's a hurdle. We've got to figure out where it goes in the store. Then we have to explain to the stores where it needs to go in the store. Then we need to explain to the customers where it is in the store. And then we need to explain to WIC moms that, yes, this is here, it's for you. Because WIC, you see, moms acquire by the ounce. It's not by cost. So once we got our prices down and met all the requirements, which is like, it's got to be 4 ounces and this kind of size thing and this kind of packaging, and it's got to look like this, and it has to be, it's complicated. But we are so far WIC eligible, let's see, in, West Virginia, yay, Florida, Vermont, Wisconsin, and another one, Connecticut? Anyway, it's exciting.
No, that's really interesting. Now, you also, the company also received a fresh round of funding, about $20 million, to try to accelerate its expansion, make this food more broadly available. Where are you sort of in this growth phase of the company?
A year and a half ago, we were in 300 stores. We're now, in 1 year, we hit 10,000 stors. So it's been a challenging year. I never thought that I would know the baby buyer at, at Target in Minneapolis versus the baby buyer at Kroger in Cincinnati versus the one, but I do, and I'm forming those relationships, and I love it. You should see me with this notebook. I could go through, you guys would crack up. I didn't know what an ROI was. I didn't know, I kept writing the same things down over and over, and I circle what I don't know. At the end of a meeting, the whole page is circled. And I make them talk me through. I'm a theater major, a performance major. I don't know anything about anything. So it's just been a real total education for me. But now it's about making sure that we're available. We knew that once I started talking about it, that we needed to be broadly available. So first we had to get into stores. We did that. Then I started talking, and we turned on the tap, and now we have to make sure that the right things are in the right stores and that moms know about us and know where to find us.
Has your celebrity helped help the brand, build brand awareness? Have you been able to leverage sort of your prominence in our culture to try to get this message out? How? Tell us how.
8 billion impressions in the first year of a business is...
That's remarkable.
Hi, Girl Scout. I'm a Girl Scout leader. Hi, girls. Hello. Yep, Thin Mints, Savannah Smiles all the way. So, yeah, it's just that. It's this. I'm not in a company big enough to warrant me being up here speaking to you guys, but I'm here. So it's just. It's that, and now we've got to keep innovating specifically because I do 3 lunch boxes a day, and my middle schooler is game to pull out a Once Upon a Farm smoothie and have it at lunch. But I'm very excited. We have to concentrate on babies. Babies are our base, and they are who we care about, but we've also got to age up for my kids.
Yeah. What have you learned across this this experience? This venture into entrepreneurship. How do you feel like your skills have developed as an entrepreneur?
I mean, I've learned a whole new vocabulary. I know what a wet wall is in a grocery store. I now say, oh yeah, we're going to disrupt categories. Oh yeah, I now talk about innovation. I've got all of that. I know what an end cap is, and I care a lot. I know that EDLP is everyday low price. So in that way, I've learned a ton, but I've also learned how similar all of our businesses are. I think I learned as much from Save the Children as anything. And the main thing is, somebody said to me once, and it's never left me, how you do anything is how you do everything. And if I have a role that I'm gonna do, I kill myself to prepare for it and make sure that I'm ready. I did an action movie a couple of years ago, and I was just a totally different sized human. My arms wouldn't have fit in this sleeve, and the rest of me was, because that's what that took. And when I work for Save the Children, I make sure that I go to Quinault Indian Nation outside of Seattle, and I go to the Mississippi Delta, and I go to Eastern Kentucky, and then I make sure that I know what I'm talking about when I have to talk about it. And I do, you know, now if you run into me in my local Ralph's, I'm probably fixing and restocking and saying to them, you know, we're out of Mama Bear Blueberry out here, if you don't mind just filling that in for me. Because you just pour yourself into what you do. Mm-hmm. Except for being a Girl Scout leader, nobody would ever claim that I am the best one of those.
But we know where to go for Thin Mints,
Yeah.
So that's very important. So I wanted to ask about this sort of latest entrepreneurial endeavor, which is aligned with your Hollywood career. I know that you're developing a project for Apple for its new Apple TV Plus streaming service.
Oh, yes.
And I was wondering if we could talk. I mean, it's a really interesting book that you're adapting for film. Could you talk a little bit about how you came to the project and how it appealed to you, and how you're using some of your entrepreneurial skills behind the camera?
There was a book going around a few years ago called My Glory Was I Had Such Friends by Amy Silverstein. And it's a memoir of a woman going through where her heart transplant, that she received a heart transplant at 25, which she wrote about in a book called Sick Girl. When she's a little younger than I am, no, my age, she takes her son to college and her heart fails, her heart transplant. And she has to decide, am I gonna get a second heart transplant, or am I gonna say, I've had a great life, I can't believe I got to live this long. And it's the struggle of that. And then what happened is Amy's girlfriends, this is real, sent her a spreadsheet and said, you will never spend a night in the hospital alone. They were all CEOs, moms, business leaders doing this, lawyers, running companies, and they said, we have scheduled ourselves so that we will take turns and overlap, and you will never be alone while you wait for your new heart. And she said, okay, I'll take that bet. And they got through it together. And so it's just a story about female friendships and how necessary they are and how we lift each other up in a way that I haven't really seen on TV. And it's, you know, against the backdrop of the most dramatic life or death thing in the world. And Amy's doing great. Her heart's been, she's
amazing. Never
felt better. She's hikes, and I did a kettlebell workout with her the other day. So the script is being written by a screenwriter I love, Karen Kroner, and so hopefully we'll be in production.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's great that that females in Hollywood can begin to tell stories that resonate.
Well, we have to develop for ourselves. Nobody is saying, you know, I'm just looking for a 47-year-old mom who wants to shoot in LA and do something about women. Unless it's Reese Witherspoon, that isn't happening. Yeah, you got to make it for yourself.
Is that, I mean, you know, Hollywood has obviously come through this really tumultuous time. I mean, as we are now year 2 out of this sort of upheaval that Me Too brought, what direction do you think the industry should take with the help of people like you who are sort of seizing opportunities? Where do you see the industry going, or where would you like to see it go in terms of story and culture?
Well, something happened with Me Too that had never happened before, and I don't know if it's the same in your worlds. But for us, when we make movies or TV shows or whatever it is, it's usually you're the one woman with a bunch of men. And there's another woman who comes in and plays your best friend, or there's a quirky neighbor, or there's something like that, but you're really alone in a world of men. So I didn't know Natalie Portman except for seeing her backstage at award shows. And I didn't know Jessica Chastain except for fangirling at a red carpet. I didn't know these other women. And we got together in rooms again and again and again, like you guys are doing now, and you can't undo that. So Hollywood can do what it wants, and they can rail and they can fight, but you can't unfriend us. We are stronger together, and we've never been competitive with each other. We've always only wanted the best. There is room, even though it's gnarly out there for women, there is room for everyone to have a place to shine. And so to be together and to feel the kind of the force of the other women with you when you have something going on is pretty great.
That's great. It really sort of flips the script where you're not sort of pitted against one another vying for roles, but working towards something larger.
And the thing that's so great about it is that if you guys said, hey, we want a Time's Up, I mean, Time's Up is working here in New York, but if you said, we're really interested in Time's Up, like the soccer players Natalie Portman called me one day and said, you know that this is happening where women's soccer players are so much more successful and they make less than half the money. We've got to show up and support them. And so a group of us showed up. I had my kids off in the corner not being photographed, but we were all there saying, hello, pay attention to these women. That's the thing that's cool. It's not just about us. It's about the overall, we all need to be in the room together, and we all need to be having each other's backs and showing up for each other, and it feels great.
That was fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for being so attentive and great. Thank you.